Welcome to Holistic Kids Show. My name is Zane.
My name's Abdullah.
And my name's Imad.
We're the Holistic Kids, here to educate and empower us kids from the inside out. Did you know that one in 6 American children has at least one brain disease like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, specific learning disorders, communication disorders, sensory processing disorders, and more? There's even a rise of another brain problem in kids known as PANDAS or PANS.
What do us kids start turning into pans to cook on?
No, PANS or PANDAS is an autoimmune disease, or when the body starts to attack the brain. And guess what? We are lucky today because we have an expert in the house, Dr. Tom Moorcroft.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's our
It's
pleasure.
our pleasure.
Right on.
He's a medical doctor that actually treats some of the sickest, most sensitive patients suffering from chronic Lyme disease, tick-borne co-infections, mold illnesses, as well as children with infection-induced autoimmune.
Encephalitis.
Yeah, that word. Encephalitis, or PANS and PANDAS. Dr. Tom focuses on optimizing the body's self-healing systems in order to achieve optimal health with simple, natural interventions, utilizing more conventional approaches when needed. Each individual is a unique unity of mind, body, and spirit. Successful treatment strategies are patient-centered and address all 3 levels. So how does a medical doctor go from that to treating the most sickest patients? We would love to hear your story.
Yeah, well, again, thanks guys for having me. This is a blast. And, it was kind of like I got sick. I was outside playing in the woods. I was actually teaching kids about nature, and we were doing like maple sugaring and teaching them about little amphibians in the creek and stuff. And then I got really sick, had a big rash on my body, a lot of pain in my joints, and a brain fog where I couldn't think. And so I got diagnosed with Lyme disease, and then I got treated for about 10 days. And then over the next sort of 8 years, I was told that I was depressed. I had a crappy attitude, and I just was tired and hurt all the time. And ultimately, 8 years later, I found doctors who diagnosed me with Lyme and babesiosis. And so then with treatment, I got my life back. And I was like, well, if it happened to me, it's probably happening to other people. And sort of when I got into medical practice, I started seeing that they were other people suffering just like me. So I wanted to help and alleviate their suffering.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
What is Lyme disease? Did you turn into a Lyme?
Did I? No, I might have been a lemon sometimes, but not much a Lyme. But so Lyme disease is a bacteria that we get from when a tick bites us. And, it can cause all kinds of crazy stuff to happen, like your brain doesn't work right, you have joint pain, get real tired. So there's some other things like, some people have gut problems like pain in their belly. And they also, can have things like weird heart problems. Or some of them is like the one, ever see anybody with their face all droopy on one side? You can get a Bell's palsy and stuff like that from it. But, joint pain and fatigue are the big ones. And so some people call it summer flu. And so a lot of times, now with COVID, it's kind of hard to figure out, what's really going on. But that's sort of the thing of it. And then it's an infectious disease. So we want to treat it with either medications or herbal antimicrobials to get people feeling better.
So how can a tick affect our brain?
So what's interesting is there's a couple things that can happen with that. And one of them is that the bug, it's called the spirochete. It's actually a spiral bacteria. It looks like a little ribbon. It can actually go into your brain or swim around your spinal cord and cause direct infection and inflammation. But one of the other ways is that if your body sees this infection floating around a lot, it can start to have a lot of what we call autoimmune antibodies. So when you see it a lot, your immune system starts going after it, but then you have a bunch of antibodies of your own that can mistakenly start to go after your own brain. And that's one of the ways that Lyme can cause PANDAS, which is basically where your body starts thinking that you're the bad guy instead of the tick, or I should say the spirochete being the bad guy. So then it starts attacking your brain. And that's where we have the PANDAS, which is pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, which is a big fancy way of saying that, when you start to have inflammation in your brain as a part of this autoimmune thing, you can have things like weird behaviors. You can start to do repetitive or obsessive behaviors. Some people have tics where they're moving their fingers a lot, or they're blinking their eyes all the time, or sort of like, doing weird face things. They can do things like stop eating. They can have a lot of anxiety where they're afraid to go hang out with their friends. Some kids even will go so far backwards, they're like 10 or 12 or maybe 13 or 8. And then they start acting like they're 2 or 3, and they do talk baby talk until things get under control. So it's really that's one of the, most of the time with Lyme disease, if it's a direct infection of the brain, that ends people up in the hospital, and we catch that. But when we get more of the PANDAS presentation, it's often when kids get sent to the psychiatrist, and, then they don't really know why everything's happening, and they try them on a bunch of medications that don't work. And they wonder why their kid's getting more irritable and more angry. And that can all be from that autoimmune process.
So what does PANDAS and PANDAS stand for? And also, what's the difference?
Sure. So PANDAS, unlike the animal, is a thing called pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with streptococcal infection. And really what that means is, have you guys ever had strep throat?
I don't think so.
Do you know anybody who's had strep throat?
Wait, what's strep throat?
So some people will get like an infection in the back of their throat. It gets red, maybe some white stuff on it, but it hurts really bad. So it's a lot of kids, maybe because your mom takes such good care of you, you're fine and you haven't had it. Like my daughter hasn't had it either, but some kids get that. And it's an infection. So strep is a bacteria. It's really common in schools, and kids pass it back and forth. And there's this thing called Sittingham's chorea, and chorea is where people make really weird movements with their arms and stuff in their body. And so that originally was one of the things that you could get after strep. And then people started to notice that children would have acute change, like really quick changes in their behavior. And they would develop that sort of OCD and the weird thinking and the rage and anxieties after strep. So they made that acronym called PANDAS. And when you look at what they found out was that not only strep did it, but many other infections could do it. Things like influenza could do it, Lyme could do it, Bartonella is another type of infection, and even mycoplasma pneumonia, which is a pretty common, what we call community-acquired pneumonia. And in the end, PANDAS is just that pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, which means it's PANDAS caused by any other infection. So in medicine, we like to be confusing to people. And so we made the acronyms to make it a little easier to say.
So what is the difference between them?
So the difference is, I kind of think of it as a hierarchy, right? So PANDAS is very specific from strep. PANDAS is essentially any kind of infection that triggers that autoimmune reaction that leads to the inflammation in the brain, which then causes you to act all crazy.
So how can parents start getting answers for their kids?
That is one of the most important questions I think I've ever been asked. And I think the number one way is for more people to do what you three are doing right now, which is to get the word out. A lot of people don't know about PANDAS and PANDAS, despite there being a lot of research on it. We actually had a group in Connecticut that helped create a law that created an advisory council. And we found over a 2-year period that there was not a lot of knowledge about PANS and PANDAS. And in this time, we were able to start having more doctors learn about it and treat children with it right away. We were able to have school nurses know about it. So mostly it's awareness. We need more research for sure, but definitely get the word out, and everybody watching, share the Holistic Kids show in our episode. And I know you talked with Dr. Roseanne, right? I mean, she's doing the same kind of work from a different perspective, and we team up a lot. We got to get the word out because we don't want other kids suffering, needlessly.
So we know the cause of PANDAS, but what about PANS besides inflammation?
Right. So there are all kinds of different infections that can do it. And so we look at things like mycoplasma pneumonia can do it, chlamydia pneumonia. And these are both what we call community-acquired pneumonias. So just like streptococcal infections, you can just go to school, or you can go to the supermarket or your friend's house and catch it. But also things like influenza, Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, all these cool things that your mom and I learned about in school, and most people roll their eyes when we talk about. But also Lyme disease and like the other infection, Bartonella can do it. And there's some of the known triggers. We also think that mold toxins are able to trigger it. And people are looking into that. So it's kind of like any infection that you can be exposed to on an ongoing basis could trigger your immune system to sort of start freaking out and starting to attack you and your brain as if it's not you.
What can parents do to help our children's brains inflammation?
Well, some of the things that you guys can do, or your parents can help you do, is to get awesome amounts of sleep. It's one of the most important things to bring down brain inflammation because, do you guys know the concept of detoxification?
Yes.
You're clearing all the junk out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, about 80 to 90% of all your brain detoxification happens while you're asleep, especially in deep sleep. So you want to make sure that you're really focusing on getting the right amount of sleep. And for like you guys, it's probably like, 10 to 12 or 13 hours a night. For me and mom, it's probably closer to 7 to 9 hours, depending upon our, us as a unique person. But sleep is one of the most important things. And the other thing I also say is getting up and going outside for some fresh air and moving your body, because the lymphatic system, which is the system that detoxifies much of the body, needs you to move and take deep breathing. So if you can get out, get some sunshine and fresh air, exercise, move your body, you're going to clean the toxins out of your whole body. And the lower the amount of toxins you have, the less inflammation you have, and the less likely you are to trigger some of these things.
Wow.
So how
Foods help the brain?
Do foods help the brain? Absolutely. Foods can actually help your brain, and your foods can hurt your brain. And like some of the foods that can help your brain are any of the foods that contain like good fats, kind of like coconut, avocado, even like, fats from meats. Like if you happen to be somebody who eats beef or eats chicken, getting the fats from those. But also there are different vegetables, and like nuts have a lot of fat in them. So they're good brain and hormone food. But also foods can be detrimental to the brain for things like sugar can cause more inflammation, and processed foods leads to more inflammation. So I usually tell people to really think about your foods are getting absorbed through your gut. So we want to give your gut good, healthy foods, and we want to get like a balance of fats and proteins and some carbohydrates, but mostly through vegetables, and then whatever protein source you want to put in your diet, with a little bit of fruit and hopefully not too much candy.
So besides all of the so if a child
All the
has
candy?
No.
Is that what you were going to say?
No, if a child has brain inflammation, what food should they avoid besides artificial colorings, all of that junk? Is there anything specific?
I think sugar, things that are high in sugar, and certainly, so obviously it sounds like you guys are talking a lot about the artificial sugars and sweeteners, and also like you just don't want sugar in general. But you want to be a little lower on the fruits generally. And then if you're working with a healthcare provider who's found that a certain food is irritating to your body. Maybe it's not bad in general, but you've had a lot of it and it sort of triggers an allergy or an irritability, like a hypersensitivity. You might want to remove that for a period of time. I find that the number one food group that kids in general kind of don't really get enough of are vegetables. And sometimes meats, but we just want to have things that are as close to the earth as possible, because you get a lot of good micronutrients that are healing to your gut and healing to your brain. And there's actually a direct connection between your gut and your brain that actually allows you to bring to remember things better, to think more clearly, to sleep better. And so if that's off, so you're going to have more inflammation and not going to be remembering things as much.
So basically just stick to the natural foods.
Absolutely.
Also, so we talked about sleep and exercise, how they can detoxify you and your brain. But how about stress? Can that affect your PANDAS or PANS condition?
Yes. It's really interesting. If how we talked about PANDAS being the most specific, and then kind of one level up where multiple infections, including strep, kind of trigger PANS. I go a step higher and I say, it's basically an infection-triggered autoimmune brain inflammation. But if you go one step higher, change infection to toxin. So to me, any toxin, once you have PANS, any kind of toxic exposure can make it worse. And one of the most common, there's two common causes of inflammation in like the United States. And one is sugar. Number two, or tied it, is stress. And so I think you bring up a really good point. Stress is one of the most important things we can, minimize. So this is one of those things that are really cool. This is where like you guys can hang out and do family time, and you can talk to your parents about prayer or meditation, or maybe you like riding your bike, or you like, doing something like a breathing app, because there's a lot of apps where you can just do breathing with it. You might like drawing or reading, anything that kind of calm your nervous system down and help you chill out. Maybe it's even just playing with your brothers or playing a board game, but anything that gets you to chill, especially with people you love, is really important. And one of the other things I would add that I think that's one of the most important things is when we talk about sort of the gut and the brain and the way they're connected, it's through a thing called the vagus nerve, and it's just one of the nerves you have. But that vagus nerve also connects your gut and your brain to your heart. And one of the best ways to help yourself calm down is to focus on your breathing, and then just breathe into your chest, like eyes closed, like 5 minutes. But once you really feel like you can feel like you're breathing into your chest and you feel a little bit calmer, start to think of someone you love or people you love, things you love doing, and be grateful for that. And when you do that, that'll actually bring down stress levels quite a bit. And it's free. You just lay it. You can even do it before bed. You could even do it right now. Like I'm breathing. I'm just so thankful that I get a chance to talk with you guys, and that your mom set this up for us. And I just heard my family came home. And even when I just heard the door, I was like, oh, I'm so thankful for my super cool family, or if my puppy licks my face. And I just feel that in my chest. And that will actually do a couple things. One, like I said, it'll bring down your stress level. But have you guys heard of a thing called the heart rate variability?
No.
So cool. So this is when, your heart can go faster and slower. When you're breathing, just over while you're sitting there, all of our hearts are changing beats a little bit. And it can go like this, really, really kind of jagged, or it can be smooth and natural. And the smooth way is really when your health is really good, you're in a state of calmness, you're very resilient to infections, your health is great, and your stress level is low. And if you do that gratitude breathing into your heart, like, once or twice a day, that will actually improve your heart rate variability. So that'll improve your overall health, bring down stress, and it also helps you sleep better, which then detoxifies your brain.
How are the gut and the brain connected?
Well, that's another awesome question. So there's a direct connection between nerves, and primarily the vagus nerve, but there's also sort of more energetic connections, because we have we talk about the central nervous system in our brain. but we also, our heart and our gut also have their own brain. We call like the gut the second brain, but all of them can actually function if they were not connected. But so then we connect them through nerves, and the nerves are what directly connect them. We also connect them energetically because they all have their own nervous system, and they work as a whole unit, even though we describe them as separate. And then the other part is there's a lot of hormones and other enzymes and substances in the body that connect them. So there's a whole bunch of connections.
So how can parents find out what infections or toxins are bothering their children? Does mercury and all of that, like all those heavy metal toxins, do they affect all the children, or is it some children are resistant?
Yeah, there's definitely kids who are more resilient to these things. So the cleaner your lifestyle, the less stress you have, the better your sleep. Certainly that can help you. And with PANS and PANDAS, it's generally triggered by an infection. And it's not the first one, it's repeated infection. But once that autoimmune process starts, that's when things like any old infection can re-trigger it. Heavy metals may trigger it, but it's already happening. And that's when stress can re-trigger it. So typically we don't think of heavy metals or stress as the main trigger, but it's one that can keep it going or re-trigger it.
What lab tests can help to find the root cause?
So from the lab testing perspective, we look at a couple things. One is, whenever you come into the doctor, we just want to check, what's going on and see, have you been exposed to anything? So we can do some basic blood counts, look at your kidneys and your liver and stuff like that. But then we look for inflammation. We can look for autoimmune markers. And then we look directly like strep and mycoplasma, Lyme, chlamydia, pneumonia, all those other infections I mentioned, we can directly test for them. And with Lyme disease and some of, the other infections like Bartonella Hensley, they can be a little harder to find. So sometimes we need specialty testing. We can also do, like I said, some autoimmune testing. And a couple of those things are basic, like we have an ANA, which is an anti-nuclear antibody, which is just a test we run for autoimmunity. And then there's some specific panels that, like a Cunningham panel, and this is a panel that looks specifically at what we call anti-neuronal antibodies. And that's a fancy way of just saying we look for evidence that your body's attacking your brain, thinking that it's an infection. And we can actually do a blood test to look for that. And so that's, those are some of the basic things we would look for.
Are there supplements that can help lower a child's brain inflammation?
Yeah, there actually are. And fish oils are actually really good supplements that can be utilized. And there's a specific fish oil called SPMs. And that's just, you notice that everything I say seems to be an acronym. It's like SPM, PAN.
Yeah.
But it's specialized pro-resolving mediator. And basically it's a really finely extracted fish oil that specifically turns off inflammation. And it also it helps us block viral replication too. So we've seen it work well in resistant influenza, and some people even in COVID, it seems like it works, so it's not been studied much. But it's really good at what we call immune modulation. So when the brain's all on fire and everything's going crazy, this can help bring it down. Another thing that's really good to just in general keep inflammation down, including in the brain, is having an optimal level of vitamin D. So most people can't do that with just the sun. They're not out enough. So we can do blood tests and see, and then give you the supplement for that. Then the other one that works really well that a lot of people have access to is CBD oil. And, as you may know, there's two kinds. There's the kind you can get over the counter that's just made from hemp. And some of the other ones are sort of more medical prescription based. And even just the over-the-counter CBD oil can be very helpful in bringing down both brain inflammation and inflammation in your gut.
So what other things can parents do to improve a child's health?
So I think one is they can all like and subscribe to your show, because it sounds like you're teaching everybody how to do all this stuff. The other thing is screen time can like being in front of the computer like we are right now is okay, for things like this and during the day. But at nighttime in particular, we want to limit screen time, especially in the hour or two before bed. And if you have to be on this screen, do the dimmer where they make it look a little yellow, or wear blue blocking lenses, because that blue light actually shifts your melatonin. And if your natural melatonin cycle is off, and melatonin's that sleep hormone, you're not going to actually be able to go to sleep as easily, which is going to lead to more inflammation. And actually, I should say one of the really potent supplement for bringing down inflammation, especially in the brain, is also melatonin. So that's something, if somebody's having some sleep disruption, that also can help not only with sleep, but inflammation. The other thing is, like I was saying, go out and play, especially in the morning. In order to get your melatonin naturally up, you want to have sunshine, particularly early in the day, and you want to move around. And so people who don't move around a lot tend to have a lot of toxins build up, and they don't really feel all that tired all the time until they don't move around enough that they're always tired. But we really want to just like use up our energy during the day, get outside in that fresh air so it allows us to sleep deeper. And the other thing I think parents need to do is, does your mom do all the stuff she tells you to do? Pretty much.
Yeah. And more.
And
more, right? Yeah, me too. So I think parents need to lead by example. So if I'm going to ask you to change your diet, I need to make sure my diet's better too. And if you need, as a parent, if my daughter needed a specific diet or to do a certain practice to help her health that was different than what I was doing, I'd still partake in that. And I think and like I said, like the gratitude writing or the gratitude breathing, I do these things and I do them with my daughter. So I really think that parents should, definitely lead by example. And I also think that, one of the things that happened when I was a kid is I didn't know why my parents were always telling me something wasn't possible. And what I've realized is that we all have this amazing unlimited potential, both for healing, for doing great. Like, I don't know many kids who are you guys' age who have a podcast, much less an awesome podcast, right? So like you have the ability to do anything you want to do. And you also have the ability to heal yourself. Your body wants to be healthy. And what's really super cool about that is I was never taught that by my parents. I kind of thought it inside, but then everybody told me, oh, no, you have to, that's probably not possible. But I'm like, well, I see people like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs making cool stuff. Why can't I do it? And then you guys can do whatever you want. And I just teach my daughter how to dream and dream big and include other people in her dream. And I think we really need to do that. We need to let you guys have a vision for what you really want in the future. And because one of the things that I think that's like really cool is that if you have Lyme disease and PANS, you're probably not going to be going out and doing all these super cool things that most kids I know want to do. So what I want you to do is think about the thing you want, and then your body's going to try to get that as hard as it can. Your mind is going to help you get that. And I think if, as a parent, if we can teach you that you can create the future you want, know that you're sick, also know that healing is possible, and then focus on what you're going to do once you're already better, that's going to make all the difference in the world in your healing. And the people who are listening who do that, they're going to write you back and they're going to say, hey, when I heard the Holistic Kids show and then I started teaching my kid that to focus on they're going to do when they're better, they got better so much faster. So you guys are really going to help people by letting them know that.
That's some amazing advice.
What is one thing parents can do to help improve their child's mental health?
Well, I think all the things we've been talking about are things that are on the table, right? And the other thing is I think we should talk to you guys like you're adults, right? I understand you're a little younger and you have a little less experience in the world than I do. But I really think that like inside of you, your spirit and my spirit are equal. And I think as a parent, like we should be teaching you that we're equals. And obviously, like if you go to the doctor probably knows more about your health than you do at the moment. Or you go to school for someone to teach you something, they know a little more. But we should still be respectful. So when our kids have a question Like when my daughter asked me a question, like no matter how crazy it seems, I talk to her the way I would want someone to talk to me. And like nothing's off limits, because today what you guys have learned in your short lives, I basically learned right along with you. So from the time I was like 1 to the time I was like in college, like I think it was like around 19 or 20 years old, the internet almost started. And I remember, do you guys know modems?
No.
So this is the thing where you plugged it. I mean, we have cable modems now, but we would literally plug the phone in to the modem and the computer into the modem, and that all those things together would dial into the internet. And it would take more than 5 minutes to actually get on the internet. And then if I searched something, it might take a minute for it to come up. Would you guys wait that long?
No.
Right? So like it took us so long to get information. So our children these days know so much more, are exposed to so much more information than we were. And I don't want them to go on YouTube and learn stuff without the ability to talk to me about it. And I'd like to be the primary source of talking about those things. So, you know, what I was exposed to when I was 25, my daughter was exposed to when she was like 6. Because you know, the internet, you guys can find anything you need. So my recommendation to parents for their kids' mental health is to, one, do a little supervision of that, but also just dive in and have a conversation. You know, what used to be rated R when we were 17, and you couldn't watch until you were 17 when I was a kid, is like what you guys see when you're 7. So we have to remember to be part of that and just really answer questions in a respectful way. And in my house, at least, whatever we want to talk about, we talk about, because I don't want her to, Talia, to be thinking in her head, oh, darn, what is that? And why are my parents not talking about it when my friends are and the kids doing the YouTube video are? I want her to have an open book where we can have a real dialogue between people who are on the same level.
Wow, you are so inspirational. Where can people learn more about you and your work?
So my medical practice is called Origins of Health, and people can find us at originsofhealth.com, or even on social media, Facebook, originsofhealth.com, and Instagram, when I do hop on there, is Dr. Tom Moorcroft. And I have to tell you guys, talk about inspirational. You dudes are super inspirational. I love what you're doing. And so thank you for spreading the word. And it's been an honor to talk with you. And thank you for inviting me.
It's our
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Tom. Let's recap Dr. Tom's key points. Us kids need to protect our brains from the inside out. To protect our brains, make sure to lower toxins and stress by...
Sleep is important for your brain, detoxification, and it helps you detoxify your body. So make sure to go to sleep on time. Exercise, nature, sunshine, especially in the morning time. That rhymes. It helps to lower inflammation and to help your body get rid of toxins. Watch what you eat. Make sure that you eat lots of rainbow foods. Make sure you eat your vegetables, clean protein, and healthy fat. Be grateful, as gratitude can help your heart rate variability and lower stress and improve sleep. If we are always worried about what we don't have, then it is difficult to be happy. We love to sing thankful songs, and we increase our gratitude when we feel like we are getting down. Lower stress by practicing gratitude and meditation.
Parents, make sure your role model what us kids need to do our bodies to have the ability to heal itself. So parents need to encourage us kids that dream can be impossible.
Dreams can be possible. Think about the thing you want, and your mind will work to get it. So the mindset is powerful.
Wow, Dr. Tom, that was amazing. Thank you again for honoring us with your time.
Well, thank you, 3, and thanks to your mom as well. It's been an honor for me, and keep up the great work. I know you guys have been doing great things, are gonna continue to do that. So I'll be watching to see all the other awesome interviews you do. So, and I'm honored as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zayn Ansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom MD, and look out for my mom's book, The Holistic RX, your guide to healing chronic inflammation and disease, the pandemic prescription, and the amazing children's book we wrote together called Adam's Healing Adventures. So check it out on Amazon. Yay! Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthier future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kids Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.